So how big a problem is there with the sale of counterfeit goods on e-commerce sites generally? Why did Pinduoduo get targeted in this way? And what has been the fallout for other tech companies? Joining me in the studio here is Professor Jing Haijing from the Law School of Renmin University, and from New Jersey, Scott Schober, CEO of Berkeley Varitronics system. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Professor Jing, let me go to you first. Now, for our viewers who have little idea about what Pinduoduo is, actually, for me also, I only got to know about Pinduoduo just days ago because it has basically sprung up. What makes Pinduoduo the fastest growing internet e-commerce company? In 3 years, they attracted over 300 million users.
Yes, that's also very interesting for me because I know Pinduoduo maybe just 1 year ago when I watched a TV program in Shanghai. It advertised this Pinduoduo. And then I know this news just recently that it's go public in New York, and also they invite many bad news that's as you say. So I think why Pinduoduo can get success in so short period. One thing that it's combining of social media and e-commerce. That means it can invite so many people according to like Tencent or other social media. The other thing that the price is so cheap. So that's generally or the nature of the thing that the cheaper, the more welcome. So I think that's the one, some reasons to explain why it's success.
Yeah, well, we are also joined by Thomas Luo, co-founder and CEO of Ping West. Welcome, Mr. Luo. Let me go to Mr. Luo then. A senior official with the State Administration for Market Regulation in China has said that conniving at or even supporting the sale of counterfeit products is a legal red line that no online shopping platform can cross. Where did Pinduoduo go wrong? Has it been unlucky? Has it acted fraudulently? Or is it a problem affecting all e-commerce companies?
Well, I think if you talk about this question 5 or 6 years ago, and we have to say at that time it was the problem that each e-commerce platform had to face with in China. But now I think things have been changed a lot because during the past years, if you see what Taobao or what JD.com has been done in for just overcome this kind of the fraud products or this kind of the low quality, poor quality product issues, and they really made a lot on that. Now in Taobao and thing, and they just encourage the individual designers or the individual product brand providers just to do some kind of things on that, just instead of the tolerant the fraud products or the sort of things. I think and that's the very significant change during the past years. But for Pinduoduo, I think, and it's a little bit different from that because if you use Taobao or JD.com or this sort of things, and I think and they just cover the first 100 million or 200 million users in China, but Pinduoduo just discovered the rest of part of the world, the rest of part of the users, I think. So they just got over 300 million users, and they may not be the users on JD or Taobao, I think. So they just discovered new market, and this market in which the previous problem that Taobao or JD.com once suffered.
Okay, so maybe it's a matter of time. Are you suggesting that you know, Pinduoduo is plagued with counterfeiting? But we'll talk about that in just a moment. Let me go to Mr. Schober. 7 U.S. law firms have launched investigations into Pinduoduo on behalf of their investors. The statement issued by the firms show that investors suffered financial losses after Chinese regulators began looking into the company's dealings. Let's not forget that the company only got listed at the end of July, and you know, everything is still fresh here. So, Mr. Schober, do these investors have a case here?
Yeah, well, actually, they may have a case. If you think about it, whether they win or lose, it actually could be catastrophic. Why? Because what happens when you get tied up into legal proceedings, it could do a lot of damage to a company, especially a company as this just recently listed, what about the brand? What about the shareholders? What about the investors? All of these things can have long impacting effects on a corporation and certainly their bottom line if they don't fix their fundamental problem, which I believe their fundamental problem is really the quality. There's so many reports again and again about counterfeit goods, about poor quality, that it sends a message to the consumers. And it doesn't matter if it's affluent consumers, or in this case, it's more a lower-end consumer that are paying very low rock-bottom prices. If the quality is not there, there'll continue to be lawsuits, there'll continue to be problems, and the brand will be affected. So they really need to do damage control right here and right now to improve that.
Yeah, okay.
They're not alone. Over the years, other e-commerce platforms have the same problem.
Yeah, Mr. Jing, Professor Jing, how do you look at the problem Pinduoduo is faced here? Is it because of low quality? Is it because of counterfeiting? Exactly, what's the problem? And we know that Pinduoduo is targeting the lower-end market in the third, fourth-tier cities in China. So that's why it flourished, right? People want to get a good bargain out of such an application because you can buy things in bulk. But also the complaint rate is also very high, 17% of users complain, and the user satisfaction rating is only a 1 star. But these information should be clear to the investors before it went public, right? So what is the problem here?
Sure. As to the disclose of this information, I think that all of these should be public before they go public, and the investors will, get lost if such information, important information, has not been disclosed. But it depends on the evidence. Then the second thing I wanted to say that the counterfeiting goods, it's still, we needed the statistics to see, is that so many counterfeiting goods, or is it a general phenomenon on this website? If not, Pinduoduo is just like a Taobao. It's just the online service provider. So from the legal point, there's still kind of defense for Pinduoduo because according to the Chinese law or even the law in the United States, OSP can, argue that there's no ability for the OSP to control or to monitoring all kind of dealings because they're just a platform, and we needed more details and evidence to say on this point.
Yeah, well, you have to understand, I think people have to understand the sheer volume of transactions and the number of sellers and transactions that are taking place on such platform on a daily basis. It's basically impossible, I think, for anybody to survey and to make sure that there are no counterfeit products. I can understand that kind of challenge. But Mr. Luo, going back to you, we're not just talking about Pinduoduo's shares going down. We're talking about many other tech companies, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, Tencent, Baidu, and which is a Chinese search engine, and then Bilibili, a video streaming company that have all experienced fluctuations. What is the problem here? Are tech companies jinxed?
Yeah, this is a very great question. Because we just noticed, and there has been a trend that this kind of the stock price just went down or this sort of things. But I think it depends on different sort of situations. And for Tencent or for Baidu, I think the main reason was in their core business. For Tencent, is the revenue from games, and for Baidu is the advertisement from search. I think for Tencent and Baidu, the main problem should be the core business for them cannot achieve that kind of the rapid growth as before. So I think that should be the problem. But for other sort of the companies like Bilibili or this sort of things, I think they're still in the sort of like the immature situation to face with the regulations or to face with the new coming problems and in terms of their products or different sort of things. But generally, I think it's really not the best time for the Chinese companies to do a lot of things. But I think one of the way to make sense and to achieve the rapid growth or to achieve the continued growth is to expand the overseas market to see what we can do.
Okay.
What this company can do in global market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Schober, very, very briefly, 10 seconds maybe. Is there a lesson to learn here for Chinese tech companies going abroad?
Well, certainly as competition grows, they have to focus, I think, on their core. You look at Tencent, and they've been on a spending spree lately, if you contrast it to others. So when they spend a lot of money, what happens? You get distracted. Focus on your core, focus on growing abroad and your customer base, and of course, again, quality, get the counterfeit out of there. That's going to be key for their growth long term.
Okay, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Thomas Law, co-founder and CEO of Pingu West, Scott Schober, CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems, and Professor Jing Haijing from the Law School of Renmin University.